Will Zillow's fate be that of AOL and MySpace? So Zillow just released their new listing access standards. So just to back up a little bit and give you a little history on Zillow, Zillow is an advertising platform for real estate agents, basically. So Zillow goes out there and Realtor.com and um, trying to think of the other ones. The aggregators will compile the data of the listings and then go out there and advertise. And then when you solicit or you inquire on a property, they'll sell that lead back to agents. So agents will pay, and that's how they make their money. So they're not actual real estate brokers, but they sell the data to the real estate brokers. In exchange, the realtors are giving them their data. So that's how that business model works. And there was a big lawsuit in the real estate industry. You probably heard that commissions are now free. So that one kind of shook the industry. And part of that settlement on that lawsuit was that on the MLS, we no longer advertise what the seller is paying a buyer's agent. So that was part of the settlement agreement. So that's removed from the MLS. And that was kind of the main purpose of the MLS that was the agreement on what agents would get paid. But the new business model is that the buyers are going to be responsible to pay the buyer's agent, and it can be negotiated in the transaction. So they don't want that pre-negotiated ahead of time. So that's the way the new business model works. And then there's a clear cooperation policy, and this is separate from that settlement. And the greatest irony on this clear cooperation settlement or clear cooperation agreement stems from Zillow itself. So Zillow back in, I think it was 2014, 2015, maybe 2013, somewhere in there, started advertising coming soon. So you could publish a listing, say coming soon, and the agents wouldn't really know about it. So that'd be a way of agent trying to advertise and get all the leads ahead of time, and it would kind of circumvent the MLS. So Zillow found this a great way to, get more money, and they started doing that. In response, the MLSs across the country, National Association of Realtors, said we need a policy called clear cooperation, that we can't sit there and put this stuff out for a month trying to gather all these leads, that we would publish it within 24 hours. So we can say coming soon. That data had to be entered into the MLS, and you could sit for a week or whatever, but you had to publish the date when it would be available, and no one else could see it. So what agents previous to that were doing was getting their buyers in first and cutting out the competition, which wasn't fair. So that was how the clear cooperation kind of ended up to be. And then after the settlement, a lot of brokers get kind of upset. So there's a big shakeup in the industry. So basically, NAR has punted the clear cooperation policy back to the local MLSs. So National Association of Realtors doesn't dictate to all the MLSs, but the MLSs are from the state board and local boards that manage it. And some are private and not connected to the Association of Realtors. So anyhow, each of those, it's up to them on how they administer that clear cooperation now. So some states will be different than others. And that's still kind of in the works. I don't have a clear picture on how that's going to shake out. But as a response, Zillow then comes out with their new Zillow listing access standards. Since they kind of started this whole mess, it just cracks me up because now they're scared that all that data is not going to be available to them. So they're a member of the MLSs to get that data. Now, years ago, they weren't, and I don't know how they got the data. I don't know if they were scraping it. I don't know where it came from. We weren't putting it on there. I would never put any of my listings on there, but somehow they had all the data. So now they're part of the MLSs. So they get what they call an IDX feed that pumps all that data to them. Now, if we get rid of this clear cooperation and agents, brokers can hold their listings and they can publicly advertise it, maybe not on Zillow, maybe somewhere else on their own website or just a sign in the yard. They can do that now. And Zillow says once they do that and they don't follow Zillow's rules, they can no longer advertise on Zillow. And if the agent or broker has two offenses, they're banned from Zillow. So basically what Zillow's doing is says, if you don't play by our rules, this is paraphrasing, we're going to ban you from our website. We're going to punish you. And what they don't want is they don't want to lose control of the data, because the only reason people go to Zillow, it's not because of the pretty blue lettering. It's not because of their fancy tools. It's because they have they have all the markets in one easy location. So it's simple. And they have the data. That's the key. They have the data. That data goes away from clear cooperation and brokers holding it back because of that contract's no longer valid with the MLS. We really don't need the MLS anymore. We go back to more of a commercial real estate model. Zillow becomes nothing. They don't have the data. So why would you go to Zillow? So Zillow, this huge giant of a company, could possibly become obsolete in a few years, depending on how this market shakes out. I don't know how it's going to go. It is possible. We have seen some behemoths, MySpace, AOL, just these huge companies that you would never think could come crashing down, just disappeared overnight. They became irrelevant. Zillow's in a position where they could become irrelevant very quickly because they don't own the data. They're just an advertising platform. The brokers control the data. They have a contract because they're a member of the National Association of Realtors, their state association of realtors, and the local board and then part of the MLS that they agree to cooperate and play as part of that market. And that became a market envious of the whole world, that all that data is available. So if you want to go buy a house, you connect with like a realtor, or you can see it online or wherever. You could see a sign in the yard and you could buy that house. Where in the commercial real estate realm, you'd have to go to each broker to see what each broker is advertising. And then the ones that don't do so well, they might post online. You might see some stuff on LoopNet. I'm a member of the commercial MLS here as well, and it's not very functional. It's the data's on there, but not all the listings. Not like the MLS, not like the residential MLS. So that model's being shaken up right now. Things are still functioning as they normally would, but it wouldn't take much to disrupt this. There could be a possibility that a couple big brokers, I know Harold Hanna, I think that's Howard Hanna, they pulled out of, no, they haven't pulled out. They're very upset with National Association of Realtors. And I don't know if they directly or indirectly indicated that they may consider leaving. They're a big enough brokerage where they would take a big enough that market piece out of the system. And that could change the way things operate. And the people, the views, the traffic is going to go to where they find the listings. I don't agree with it. It's kind of a shame. We had a great system until the lawyers got greedy and kind of disrupted it all. But right now, it's currently operating very similar to the way it always used to. There's a little bit more friction, but people are still getting paid. The transactions are still happening. The market's kind of in transition. People are adjusting, but it wouldn't take much to throw this all out. And this looks like a desperate attempt by Zillow to try to control things. And then Zillow has a competitor. You probably have seen the ads, homes.com. And homes.com is very broker friendly. So they've taken a different strategy. They're really buddying up to the brokers and making it very friendly for them. Plus, they've got some great tools on there and arguably a better website than Zillow. They're newer. They've updated everything. So if you haven't checked out homes.com, check out those resources and tools. You can click on it, and rather than getting a Zestimate, you get a full-blown CMA, comparative market analysis. So that could be a game changer as well. I know people think, oh, Zillow's too big to fail, right? And but things change fast in this world. And I think with this kind of action that they're taking, the listing access standards, so non-compliant listings. So this is their website, their verbatim. If a publicly marketed listing is not submitted in compliance with these standards, we will not accept such listings for display on the Zillow sites, whether directly or through an MLS or third-party data feed at any time for as long as the listing is with the same listing agent and or the same listing broker. Whether or not subject to the initial listing agreement or any amend or subsequent listing agreement with the same brokerage. We reserve the right to enforce this provision in our own sole discretion. So they're basically threatening the agents and brokers that if you don't follow the rules to make sure that that data is submitted to the MLS within 24 hours so they get that data and be on top, that they're going to punish you. That's not going to fly well. Managing the agents and brokers is like herding cats. So I see this as potentially backfiring on Zillow. I think homes.com is going to grab a little bit more market share. You're going to see, I think, more people switching over to homes.com if this starts to grab traction. It is, I think, arguably a better site anyhow. So that's my 2 cents. That kind of hit this week. There were a couple of people that it's kind of off of everyone's radar with everything going out in the world. And I kind of tried to catch up on it this evening and bring myself up to speed. And I'll kind of watch this one as it goes forward. But, you know, the real estate industry is changing. The way you're going to find listings for sale right now, you can assume that all the data is not on Zillow right now with this policy in place. How much of it, we don't know yet. But, you know, there are cases where they don't follow Zillow's prescribed procedure on how this operates. They say they're not going to punish builders. They say they're not going to, if you have a withhold agreement, like it normally operated with clear cooperation, they won't punish that. But if you deviate from that original clear cooperation, which remember, that agreement was in response to Zillow's policy on coming soon. So the only reason we have clear cooperation is because the brokers didn't like what Zillow was doing. And now the game has changed again, and now it's backfiring on Zillow. So Zillow says, no, we need clear cooperation. So they're trying to have, different times, they're trying to argue both ways now. So yeah, keep an eye on this one. This could be interesting, but definitely check out homes.com. And that I think you're going to get all the data over there, and keep your options open. But Zillow may not be here forever, so that's just it's an interesting thing. I've seen it come from dial-up service pre-internet, coming off the books. We went up to dial-up service, so I was at that transition. Then the transition onto the internet, and then onto Zillow came out of kind of nowhere and kind of forced their way into the market. The National Association of Realtors didn't understand how big the internet was going to be, so they sold their rights, the licensing agreement, to use the term realtor.com. And the realtors do not actually own that site. That's managed by a third party, and they sell the leads back to agents. So it's a crazy business. So when you do fill out stuff online on any of ththese aggregator sites, you're not necessarily going to the actual listing agent. You're going to someone who's buying your name. It's paid advertising. So if you're looking to get directly to the listing agent, you got to go find that listing agent, the brokerage website, and go connect with that brokerage directly. So that's all I got for this evening. I just wanted to kind of catch up on that. There's a lot of other stuff happening out there too. Trump talked about privatizing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So that will be groundbreaking. I haven't read all of the specifics on that one. I'm not sure what to think on that one yet. So I'll try to get caught up on that news and get you an update here this week. Have a great Memorial weekend. Have a good one.